Now, Billy Graham, one of the greatest evangelists of our time, once said, "The Christian life is not a constant high. I have my moments of deep discouragement. I have to go to God in prayer with tears in my eyes and say, 'Oh God, forgive me or help me.'" And today I want us to unpack this topic of discouragement and fear. Hey there, my name is Joyce Omondi Waihiga. I hope you're well and have had a great week. Welcome to another episode of CITAM Church Online. So, discouragement and fear are two of the greatest obstacles in completing God's work. They often come when and from where we least expect them. Discouragement eats away at our motivation, and fear soon follows discouragement by paralyzing us so that we don't act at all. Now, God's people in every age have faced these challenges. In fact, the Bible tells us in 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 12, to expect opposition when we do God's work. Why? Because unbelievers and evil spiritual forces are always working against God and His people. Now, one of the examples we can learn from on this subject is a guy named Zerubbabel, and on the story of the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem. Now, in the beginning, everything seemed to be going well. God's people had been exiled in Babylon for many, many years, but then when Babylon was finally defeated, God stirred up the heart of Cyrus, King Cyrus of Persia, to actually issue a decree allowing the Jews to return to Jerusalem from Babylon and rebuild their temple. Now, Zerubbabel was the one that was leading the first and the largest group back to the promised land. These guys had been in Babylon for so long, like a very long time. And so they had established their lives there. They had settled into their roots over there, and many of them even wanted to stay. But 50,000 of them, 50,000 Jews decided to give up their very comfortable lives and make the journey back to Jerusalem and to literally start fresh. And so when they got there, the builders laid the foundation of the temple, and celebration and praise broke out and thanksgiving. And it was great. It seemed like everything was just going well and according to plan. Sounds good, right? Sounds like a good start. But then trouble started and discouragement began to creep in. Now, this was 50 years since the destruction of the temple. But now, as it's finally being rebuilt, some of the older guys began remembering the temple that Solomon had built, and they started weeping. Like, not tears of joy, but weeping, because they felt that the new temple was not as big or as glorious as the one that Solomon had built. And you would think that after 50 years of not having your temple, of being exiled in this land and finally having the chance to go back and rebuild the center of worship, that honestly, it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter if it's as big or as glorious. You know, you'd kind of think, you have the chance to do this. That's all that you need. But that wasn't the case. There are some people in our lives who, as soon as they see you start to lay down something, they will begin comparing your efforts to that of other people. They'll say things about how your plan isn't as robust, or your intentions won't make as big of an impact, or this, that, and the other. The question is, how do you deal with that kind of talk? How do you deal with that kind of discouragement? Do you move ahead with the work that God has planned, or are you quickly distracted by people's opinions? Getting back to the story now, Zerubbabel was then faced with a second challenge. In Ezra chapter 4, we read that some enemies of the Jews tried to infiltrate the workforce and to stop the building. Like, these guys were doing all that they could. And verse 3 to 4 say, "But Zerubbabel, Joshua, and the rest of the heads of the family of Israel answered, 'You have no part with us in building a temple to our God. We alone will build it for the Lord, the God of Israel, as King Cyrus, the king of Persia, commanded us.' Then the peoples around them set out to discourage the people of Judah and make them afraid to go on building." Now, this opposition was persistent, okay? Accusations were lodged against the Jews, and political pressure really began to mount over the years. Eventually, this fear, this discouragement into the fear, actually led to the rebuilding of the temple to grind to a complete stop. For 16 years, work stopped. So these guys basically sat in their homes in Jerusalem, where they've gone back to for the purpose of building the temple. But now they're sitting in their homes, they don't have a center of worship, and they lived that way for 16 years. I mean, they might as well have just gone back to Babylon, right? I mean, they would have been back in exile over there. They still wouldn't have a center of worship anyway, right? We suffer the same loss when we allow discouragement to turn into fear and hopelessness. Now, many of us know how to start well, but we find it very hard to keep going. At the start of something new, we are so excited and we feel so accomplished. But as soon as discouragement or opposition or any other challenges arise, we slow down and we lose our fire. It was only after God sent the prophets Haggai and Zechariah to encourage Zerubbabel that then his and the people's fears were comforted, and work began again with renewed energy, and it was completed in 4 years. So after waiting for 16 years, this thing finally got done in just 4 years. So what lessons can we draw from Zerubbabel? The thing is, we may not always receive constant encouragement when things don't go as planned or as hoped. Our work for God and our accomplishments in His name should not depend on the amount or the quality of encouragement that we receive. Sometimes you literally just have to encourage yourself. Second, we must learn to expect discouragement and fear and opposition when we set out to do God's work, so that if you're expecting them, then you're not halted by them when they come. Spiritual highs are often followed by very deep spiritual lows, and that's often a very difficult experience that can lead us to settle into mediocrity, like the people of Judah and Benjamin did when they stayed in Jerusalem for 16 years without a center of worship. They just decided, I guess since we don't have one, it's fine. We'll just stay like that. That is mediocrity, and it was brought about by discouragement and fear. Next is the enemy, to understand that the enemy will be unrelenting in his attempt to set you back when you are making a commitment to the Lord. So you must learn to be prepared. You have to set yourself up for battle. So whether you're starting a Bible study group, or you want to start a nationwide ministry, or whether you're a musician like myself, and you really want to honor God with the gifting that He's given you, we must be prepared. We must arm ourselves with God's word. We must learn to encourage ourselves, and we must shut out the voices that seek to pull us down or into compromise and mediocrity, and to just simply let God take control. He will be faithful in completing that which He has begun in you. I pray that this has been of encouragement to you. Maybe there's something that you've been pursuing, there's something you really want to do for the Lord and things are just not working out. I really pray that you can draw lessons from Zerubbabel today. I know I certainly am trying to do the same. I'm a musician, and sometimes things work, sometimes they don't. But you know what, at the end of the day, I have to say, you know what, Joyce, I don't sing for awards, I don't sing for people, I don't sing to be famous. I sing because it's what God has called me to do, and there's a mission that I want to accomplish right there. And so today, let's make a deal, let's make a declaration, let's decide for ourselves today that regardless of when opposition or discouragement comes, because it will come, let's choose to stand firm. Let's choose to arm ourselves with God's word and to never settle for less. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Maybe you have an experience of a time that you faced so much opposition and a lot of discouragement. Let me know about it. I'd love to engage with all of you guys about it. You can catch up with me on social media at Joyce Omondi, and also be sure to reach out to us at CITAM ChurchOnline on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. May the Lord bless you and keep you. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next time. God bless.